everyone, welcome back to my channel. This is Kat. So again, it's a new year. That means another round of application to get your next dream job. And if you're interested in consulting, this is the video for you. If you've been watching my videos, you know I'm a healthcare strategy consultant. And actually in the past 6 months-ish, I've been interviewing many PhDs for my company as part of a recruiting team. And I really want to use this video to, tell you how you can ace a consulting interview and avoid some of the common pitfalls that I've seen many PhDs have done. So I want this video really be straight to the point, give you as much helpful information as possible. So I want to skip the whole introduction in this video. But if you like such content, interested in consulting in general, don't forget to subscribe to my channel so I will share more of those contents with you. Without further ado, let's get started. If you're interested in consulting, if you've heard about consulting, you know that consulting interview is the final step before you get an offer, right? Before that, you've done your network, you've generated the perfect resume, you've submitted your resume got passed by the HR, you were told either via phone call or email that you are going to an interview. So what should you do and what should you avoid in those interviews? Typically for those interviews, different companies have different evaluation systems, what percentage of what should be evaluated more, because different company has different values, etc., etc. But typical consulting interviews are segmented into two parts, right? One is the fit interview and one is the case interview. And that is very unique, I will say, to the consulting world, because most of the interviews, if you go to industry, if you go to medical science liaison, you don't really have the case part of the interview. For MSL, you might have some presentations, right? That also vary by companies, but it's typically ask you to profile a drug, to understand that drug, device, whatever that company is famous for, right? Specifically to that. So maybe potentially before you're applying to that company, you might already do some initial research. So that part is a little bit predictable in that case, right? But for consulting, the case part is completely unpredictable because you do not know that what type of case that interviewer would give it to you. Of course, you have practice cases from those case books or the past experience from your friends who is working in consulting. This type of interview is unique to consulting, so you can't really just take other people's experience in other industry and apply in this field. Okay, so in this video I really want to talk to you that in each part, fit or case interviews, what you should do and what you should avoid. So fit interview, what does it mean, right? Why does consulting need this fit part of the interview? So fit interview part, it typically lasts, let's say if it's an hour interview, it'll be 10-15 minutes. Okay, that is the part that really assess who you are as a person. What can you achieve if you join consulting? What's your personality? How would you solve a difficult situation? Or, your past experience in leadership, your resume, it's all about just getting to know you, right, as a person. So if you're a PhD candidate, I might talk to you about your academic achievements. How did you actually, do this kind of science or, engineering? So that's something, each firm might vary, but if you're interviewing with a healthcare boutique consulting firm, we might get to know the scientific part a little bit more than just general management firms, because we value the expertise that you're gonna bring for the firm. So we want to know that how much you actually have done for your project and how much you know about the things that you say that you know, right? So we do evaluate that part. And we also evaluate, the things you've done in your local consulting club or other volunteer work. So just to know you, to see what value you bring for the firm. So that being said, clear communication and show you value is really important. So I've interviewed maybe 50 PhDs in the past 6 months. let me tell you, there's just different variety of people out there, and my biggest tip in the fit interview part is really show yourself, okay? Don't pretend you're another person. Be genuine when you talk to your interviewer, right? The interviewer is also a person, like just me. I was in grad school. I know the whole pain, and just be genuine, be honest about your experience, why you want to do consulting, why you chose our firm, right? And why did you do all this experience? How was your project? Just be honest. You don't have to hide. And I've seen some candidates, they really prepared so well. Okay, they maybe practice every question they have thought that an interviewer could ask. But sometimes you cannot predict all the questions. So when the interviewer asks you a question, don't try to dodge that question and answer that question with a prepared answer for another question. It just doesn't make sense, right? The interviewer want to have a conversation with you, okay? It is not supposed to be a super rigid, robotic answer. I'm not expecting that. I want to have a genuine conversation with you. I want to get to know you, right? That's the whole point of the fit interview. So I remember once I was talking with a candidate. She was very professional. You can see she prepared really well. But sometimes when I ask a question, I don't understand why she replied to me in a way that it's like an answer to another question, as I said. Over-prepare is definitely not necessary, okay? Just relax and enjoy the conversation. Of course, you should prepare, okay? Like, that is not a question here, but I do want to give a tip for people who are really nervous. Just relax and think the interviewer is your friend and have a good conversation with him or her. On the contrary, the other tip for that is be professional, okay? It is an interview. Yes, it is an online interview via Zoom, via Teams, whatever platform that company prefers, but it's still a professional interview. Please remember your posture, your outfit is professional. And if your background should not be seen on the video, there's so many background options on Zoom that you can choose, right? You can blur the background, you can add a fake thing in your background, but please don't put a beach. I've seen a couple candidates, the candidate themselves are good or like okay, it's not like they did things horrible, but one candidate showed up in the hotel room with a t-shirt. So I think that is not professional. And another one, it's his bedroom, but you can see just shoe racks with all different kind of decorations in the back. It's very distracting, okay? It is okay when you have a messy room, but just leave that to yourself, right? Don't show everything in front of an interviewer, okay? It just shows that you don't care this interview as much, right? That might be a little bit too genuine, showing yourself to the interviewer. And the last tip I want to give in the fit part is listen. Listen to the question that your interviewer asked, okay? Engaging with the process. So sometimes it is okay to ask your interviewer to repeat that question if you did not hear that clearly, okay? Because everybody has some accent. I'm not a native speaker. I speak English in accent. So when I was an interviewer, I might, right, say something that you don't understand. You might be an international student. You hear another native speaker saying some slangs. Maybe you don't understand that either. So there could be miscommunication happen during the process. But remember, listen and ask questions if that is not clear, okay? Don't just try to pretend you understand a question and answer it in a way that doesn't make sense. That is worse, way worse than just ask, can you please, clarify what you meant? Or, can you please repeat your question? That is totally fine from interviewer's perspective. Because remember, ultimately, we want to know you as a professional to see what value you bring in for the company. So that is the fit part. And after, let's say 10-15 minutes, the interviewer might say, it's great, or thanks for sharing all these stories, or, thanks for sharing the consulting experience. We have, let's say, 30 minutes left. Would you mind us switching to a case? from that moment on, right, you're going to be given a case and you're going to work through this case together with the interviewer. And that is key, okay? You're working together with the interviewer, okay? Think him or her as a colleague. I think that is the first and biggest tip I want to give out, is really just think you're working with somebody that you know before, and that is a question that was given by a client. And you want to discuss with your colleague how to approach that question and how to ultimately solve that question, right? That is a very important mindset I think that candidates should have. Because ultimately, imagine you're on a team. That is how it works. It's a teamwork, right? You do want to engage in the interviewer during this process as well. I've seen candidates at either side of the spectrum. One would purely ask questions, right? They don't give answers or solutions. So let's say we're gonna address a market size question. So typically, you will not ask the interviewer, right, what is the market size for this? Because that's gonna be, if that is gonna be something you're gonna work out. So I've seen people ask me directly, do we know what is the market size? I mean, I'll ask back, can we please, think about what could potentially be the way to address this question? What data do you need, right? And I'm not gonna give you the market size itself, okay? Like, I'm not gonna give you the answer to that question because that's gonna be something you have to work out yourself. On the other spectrum, people is gonna have all the assumptions themselves. They don't engage the interviewer. They'll be like, okay, so in order to work out this, we will, let's say, look at the prevalence data, and I would assume the prevalence for this disease is 1%. I mean, then why do you need me? Like, if you work out the whole thing yourself, you should ask, right? You should ask, do we know about the prevalence data? I mean, of course, you can go one step further, saying, my assumption would be 1% for, let's say, for diabetes. I would assume there's 1% in the United States have diabetes based on XYZ data if you're a diabetes expert. But I'm sure you're not expert for every single market, right? So you can't just make up assumptions yourself. The assumptions should be reasonable. So if you don't know that, you should ask first. You can always make your assumption yourself, but please check with the interviewer, okay? Make sure everybody's on the same page. Don't just do everything yourself. That same thing applies to math. For all the quantitative questions, don't just do math yourself on a sheet of paper immediately when I say what is the market size. And you start doing math, and then you're gonna lose me sometime there. Because I've seen candidates that just start doing math by themselves without engaging me. And that is a big mistake, because you do want me to understand what you're doing and finally know potentially where you might make mistakes and how to correct that if that happens. That leads to the second tip. The second tip is have a structure, okay? Have a structure for everything. That's pretty much my tip, okay? So structure really helps you to organize your thoughts. So you need a structure at the very beginning. I would assume everybody has done case prep, probably know that, right? You want a structure when you have a big question. The client asks us this question, how would you address that? And then you say, give me a minute, right, to think about it. Then you lay down structure. Most candidates would do so. Of course, I've seen a few really early on during their case prep, never did that. But most people do that, right? You lay out the structure, you say, I'm gonna look at market, I'm gonna look at competitor, I'm gonna look at customer, I'm gonna look at products, etc. But then people start forgetting. They have this framework in their head, okay, I need a structure up front. But again, you need structure pretty much for every big questions, right? Let's say if you want to assess if a PE firm needs to acquire a target, you need to understand the market size before considering if the company should acquire targets. Then the market sizing is part of the question, right? Then in order to do that, you need a framework, you need a structure as well, right? In order to calculate the market size, if let's say you start with the prevalence data, diagnosis rate, treatment rate, etc., patient segmentation, etc. You want to first lay out that structure to employer, right? Then first of all, the employer is gonna know, okay, this dude knows the frame really well, he or she knows how to do this, right? it's very clear. Ultimately, you just gotta plug in numbers. So you, like that market sizing question, you pretty much already, got 80 points already. Second, it also helps you to really organize your thoughts on, okay, I'm gonna first look at prevalence, then I'm gonna ask for diagnosis rate, 1, 2, 3, right? So it's very clear. It will help you to, just solve this case faster and easier. And third, if let's say you did an error during the math problem, right? Because that happens when you do math yourself on a piece of paper. So for you, it'll be easier to go back and see if all the assumptions are correct. Are there mistakes on the assumptions themselves, or are there mistakes during the math calculation steps? Same thing for the interviewer. You do math aloud, you say, I'm doing this, and then all these structured thoughts will also help interviewer to catch where the mistakes happen, right? So I really highly recommend doing things with a structure. Think with logic really helps, not only just for your case, but also later on when you actually become a consultant, work things out. The next tip I want to give is really when you work out the case, it should be hypothesis driven. Let's say the client is, again, using that PE firm trying to acquire target example, the hypothesis is, let's say, the PE firm should acquire this target because they achieved market size of XX million dollars, right? That's your hypothesis. But let's say after your math, you realize actually they cannot break even, let's say, compared to the initial investment, or let's say this company is actually going, there's no growth within this company. You can modify your hypothesis saying actually the PE firm should not acquire this because of this. So this is the same process when you're doing actual case as well. You keep modifying your hypothesis, and this also again help you to address this case faster and help your interviewer to follow your thoughts as well. And lastly, I want to really emphasize on the strategic thinking if you're interviewing in a place that really care about the strategic thoughts, okay? So if you're only interviewing with a market research firm, then the implications, the strategic thinking might not be as important. But for most management consultants, the strategic thinking is important, right? I know I've been emphasizing a lot on the numbers, TAM, and market size, but that's just an example that I use. But as equally important, the think out of the box and what kind of implication, that you can draw from the math or other research you've done throughout the case is important, right? By acquiring this target, what kind of synergy can we achieve, right? So this kind of thinking, this kind of qualitative thinking is also critical when interviewer assess your capability during the case. And I think just trying to train yourself outside the case, think out of the box, what kind of ideas you can have, as many as possible, because their interviewers keep asking you what's more, what else, right? So don't forget about strategic thinking. That's also very important. And of course, that includes the benefits, synergies, risks, and next steps. And all of them are, what we do also as a consultant when we recommend to the client as well. So I think these are all the tips that I want to give to you that you should or should not do during the interview. And I hope it really helps. I really gather all these thoughts from the past experience with all these candidates. There are some candidates truly amazing, they aced all these interviews, really hit all the points. But there are some, candidates really just need some people to tell you, these kind of pitfalls, to avoid them or improve on certain elements, and then you might get that offer, right? It's really just a little bit, and I really hope this video can help you if you are going to apply, let's say this year, or if you've already applied but don't know what actually happens, what was something that you did wrong. And I hope this video can address some of those concerns. And please let me know if you have any other questions that bothers you. Leave that in the comments. I will address them as soon as possible. And if you like this video, please thumb up and subscribe to my channel. I'll provide more of consulting related topics on my channel. And thank you all so much for watching. I will see you in the next one.